Ladies and gentlemen, in the grand theater of world politics, the most critical decisions of a nation should be written by its own hand, shaped by the voices of its own people, and powered by the dreams of its own generations. Yet, in many developing countries, the pen that writes the script of governance is no longer held within their borders. Instead, it is guided and often gripped by foreign powers, international institutions, and corporate giants. This is the silent reality we call political outsourcing. Let us be honest, outsourcing politics does not always begin with conspiracy. It begins with necessity. A drought strikes, an economic crisis unfolds, debt piles up, and a developing nation turns to the IMF, the World Bank, or bilateral donors for help. The aid comes, but not without a set of reform packages written in distant capitals. Pakistan, for instance, in 2019 and again in 2023, accepted IMF bailouts, but along with the funds came austerity, fuel subsidies cut, currency devalued, and tax structures reshaped not because the streets of Karachi demanded it, but because the meeting rooms of Washington required it. Political outsourcing is not limited to finance. It seeps into the soil of resource management. Ghana's cocoa farmers grow the raw gold of the chocolate industry, yet international commodity boards and European corporations set the prices. The Ghanaian parliament can debate all year, but the reality is decided in foreign trade offices. And in Chile, one of the richest lands for copper and lithium, multinational mining companies often negotiate contracts that bind the country's hands for decades, making environmental policy and taxation matters of foreign boardroom decisions rather than national will. Then comes infrastructure, the skeleton of a nation's progress. Kenya's standard gauge railway is a shining modern rail line, funded and built by China under the Belt and Road Initiative, but the loans and terms bind Kenya to Chinese contractors, technology, and repayment schedules for decades. A piece of national development is effectively tied to another country's strategic vision. Even the very narratives that guide public debate are shaped externally. In many African and Asian nations, foreign-funded NGO and think tanks promote specific governance models, privatization, deregulation, certain electoral reforms, and label them as modernization, even when they may weaken local industries or erode cultural values. The danger here is subtle but deadly. Sovereignty becomes symbolic. Yes, we wave our flags, hold elections, and pass laws, but when budgets are written abroad, when natural resources are managed elsewhere, when infrastructure policy is dictated by lenders, we are nations in name, but clients in practice one. Sovereignty without control is illusion. A nation may wave its flag and pass laws, but if its economic policies, resources, and infrastructure plans are dictated by outsiders, true independence is only symbolic. Asterisk asterisk, sovereignty without control is illusion asterisk asterisk on paper. Sovereignty means the ultimate authority of a nation to govern itself. It's about having a constitution, holding elections, passing laws, and flying a flag that represents independence. But in reality, sovereignty without control over key decisions is like owning a house but letting someone else decide who lives in it, what furniture you buy, and even what food you cook. It becomes an illusion, a performance of independence, not the substance of it. In many developing countries, this illusion is sustained by formal independence paired with deep external dependency. Governments may be free to choose their leaders, but the economic framework, budget allocations, and even the laws they pass are often shaped by external actors. These actors may be international financial institutions, powerful foreign governments, or multinational corporations. The influence is rarely announced in bold letters. It is embedded in loan conditions, trade agreements, or long-term investment contracts. For example, When Pakistan accepts an IMF bailout, it formally retains its sovereignty, but in practice, the IMF structural reform conditions such as removing subsidies, raising utility prices, or altering tax codes reshape domestic policy priorities. While these measures may stabilize the economy on paper, they often clash with local realities, pushing inflation higher and creating political unrest. The decisions may be made in Islamabad, but the framework within which they are made is designed in Washington. The same applies to rich nations like the Democratic Republic of Congo, where cobalt essential for modern batteries is abundant. Though the country officially owns its land and resources, foreign corporations and governments control much of the extraction, pricing, and export arrangement. Local lawmakers may pass regulations, but the power to enforce meaningful change is limited by contractual obligations and economic pressures. True sovereignty requires more than symbolic independence. It requires control over economic levers, resource management, and strategic decision-making. Without this control, nations risk becoming stage actors in their own political drama, delivering speeches of independence while backstage. The real script is written elsewhere. Until developing countries reclaim these decision-making powers, their sovereignty will remain more ceremonial than functional, existing in law but absent in practice. 2. Aid comes with invisible strings. Financial bailouts and foreign investments often arrive tied to strict policy reforms that serve the lender's interests more than the people's needs. Aid comes with invisible strings. Foreign aid, loans, and investments are often presented as lifelines for developing countries facing economic crises, natural disasters, or infrastructure shortages. On the surface, they appear as generous acts of global solidarity funds to rebuild cities, feed populations, and jumpstart economies. But beneath this goodwill lies a web of conditions, policy changes, and commitments that can quietly redirect a nation's political and economic course. These are the invisible strings of aid. When a country turns to institutions like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, or the World Bank, it rarely receives unconditional support. Instead, the money comes tied to structural adjustment programs, policy packages designed to meet the lender's economic philosophy. These conditions can include removing subsidies on essential goods, privatizing state-owned enterprises, liberalizing trade, or adopting foreign, drafted legal reforms. While these measures may improve macroeconomic indicators, they often hurt vulnerable populations in the short term and restrict the government's freedom to make independent choices. A vivid example is Greece's debt crisis in the 2010. Though not a developing country, it showed how even sovereign nations can lose autonomy under bailout agreements. The European Union and IMF provided funds, but in exchange, Greece had to cut pensions, raise taxes, and sell public assets policies that caused deep social unrest. In the developing world, this pattern is even more pronounced. In Kenya, large-scale infrastructure loans from China under the Belt and Road Initiative helped build the standard gauge railway. But these loans required the use of Chinese contractors' technology and sometimes even imported labor, ensuring that much of the money flowed back to China's economy. The project brought progress, but it also bound Kenya to decades of debt repayment and limited its bargaining power in future negotiations. These invisible strings aren't always purely economic. They can be political too. Countries receiving military aid may be pressured to align with the donor's geopolitical stance, vote a certain way at the United Nations, or grant access to military bases. Aid, therefore, is rarely a gift, it is a transaction. And unless developing nations negotiate wisely, they risk trading short-term relief for long-term dependency, surrendering parts of their sovereignty without even realizing the cost until it's too late. 3. Resources are rich, but decisions are poor. Many developing nations possess valuable natural resources, yet pricing, management, and profits are controlled from abroad, leaving local communities in poverty. Resources are rich, but decisions are poor. Many developing nations sit atop some of the world's most valuable resources: oil, gas, gold, copper, cobalt, lithium, and fertile agricultural land. In theory, these riches should guarantee prosperity, modern infrastructure, and a higher standard of living for their citizens. But in reality, these nations often remain trapped in poverty. The problem is not the absence of wealth beneath the soil, it is the absence of control above it. Pricing, management, and profits are frequently dictated by foreign corporations, commodity markets, and international trade agreements, leaving local communities with crumbs from their own banquet. Take the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, as an example. It holds more than 70% of the world's cobalt reserves, a mineral essential for smartphones, electric vehicles, and renewable energy storage. Yet, despite being the backbone of the modern tech economy, the DRC remains one of the poorest countries in the world. Why? Because multinational companies, often backed by foreign governments, dominate the mining sector. Contracts are structured so that profits flow abroad, while locals face unsafe working conditions and minimal wages. The Congolese government, under pressure from both investors and lenders, has limited bargaining power to demand fairer terms. Similarly, in Nigeria, oil exports make up a major share of government revenue, yet much of the refining is done overseas. The price of crude oil is determined by global markets, not by Nigeria itself. When oil prices crash internationally, national budgets collapse domestically. Even during boom periods, a large portion of the profits goes to foreign oil companies, leaving underdeveloped infrastructure and persistent poverty in oil-rich regions like the Niger Delta. Agriculture is no different. In Ghana and Ivory Coast, cocoa is the economic lifeline, but pricing is set in London and New York commodity exchanges. Farmers often sell at prices barely covering their costs, while chocolate companies in Europe and North America capture the lion's share of profits. This imbalance means that nations rich in resources remain poor in outcomes. Without reclaiming control over extraction, processing, and pricing, developing countries will continue exporting raw wealth while importing poverty. True prosperity demands that these nations move from being mere suppliers to becoming owners, managers, and price setters of their own treasures. 4. Infrastructure can build dependency. Foreign-funded mega-projects may look impressive, but can lock countries into decades of debt, technology reliance, and political alignment. Infrastructure can build dependency at first glance. Foreign-funded mega-projects in developing countries look like symbols of progress: modern highways, gleaming railways, advanced ports, and new power plants. They promise faster trade, better connectivity, and economic growth, but behind the glossy photos and ribbon-cutting ceremonies lies a deeper truth. These projects can create long-term dependency through debt, technology reliance, and even political alignment. When a developing country accepts foreign funding, often in the form of loans, it usually comes with binding contractual obligations. Lenders may require that their own companies, workers, and materials be used. This ensures that much of the loan money flows back to the lender's economy rather than circulating locally. For example, Kenya's ** standard gauge railway ** built under China's Belt and Road Initiative, was financed through Chinese loans and constructed by Chinese firms. While it connected key cities and boosted transport capacity, it also saddled Kenya with billions in debt and locked the country into decades of repayment schedules. Technology dependency is another layer of this trap. Many of these mega projects use proprietary systems, signaling technology for trains, specialized machinery for power plants, or advanced engineering designs that only the lending country can maintain. This means that even long after the project is completed, the host nation must rely on foreign technicians, spare parts, and expertise. The infrastructure might be physically located in the developing country, but operational control remains tethered abroad. Political alignment can also be a hidden cost. Strategic infrastructure, such as ports or energy facilities, can give foreign powers leverage in negotiations. If a country falls behind on debt payments, the lender may seek control over parts of the infrastructure or demand political concessions. Sri Lanka's *** Hambantota, a port *** is a striking example. When the government couldn't repay Chinese loans, it leased the port to a Chinese company for 99 years, raising concerns over sovereignty and security. While foreign-funded infrastructure can spark short-term growth without careful negotiation and diversification of partners, it risks becoming a golden cage impressive to look at, but limiting freedom of movement. True development means building not just infrastructure, but independence alongside it. 5. Self-reliance is possible with strategy. Examples like Malaysia prove that through diversified partnerships, local expertise, and firm negotiation, developing nations can benefit from globalization without becoming political clients. Self-reliance is possible with strategy. In the interconnected world of today, no nation, especially a developing one, can completely isolate itself from global trade, investment, or political influence. But globalization does not have to mean political dependency. With the right strategy, developing nations can engage with the world, attract foreign investment, and secure partnerships without surrendering their sovereignty. Countries like Malaysia show that self-reliance is possible when leaders prioritize diversified partnerships, build local expertise, and negotiate from a position of strength. Malaysia's development model offers a valuable lesson. Instead of depending on a single foreign power or financial institution, it spread its economic partnerships across different regions, engaging with the US, China, Japan, the Middle East, and ASEAN neighbors. This diversification ensured that no single country could dominate its political or economic decisions. When one partner made demands that conflicted with national interests, Malaysia could turn to another, maintaining its bargaining power. Local expertise played a critical role as well. Malaysia invested heavily in education, technical training, and research institutions. This allowed it to manage its own infrastructure projects, develop homegrown industries, and reduce reliance on foreign consultants. For example, in the oil and gas sector, Petronas Malaysia's state-owned company, became a global energy player, ensuring that the country retained control over its natural resources while still benefiting from foreign collaborations. Firm negotiation was another pillar of this strategy. Malaysian leaders insisted on terms that brought tangible benefits to the local economy, such as technology transfer, local job creation, and joint ventures, rather than simply accepting foreign-built, foreign-run projects. This meant that even when foreign investment flowed in, it strengthened Malaysia's long-term capabilities rather than deepening dependency. The lesson here is clear. Self-reliance is not about shutting doors to the world. It's about opening them selectively and on your own terms. Developing nations that diversify partners, strengthen their human capital, and negotiate firmly can benefit from globalization while keeping their political compass in their own hands. In a world full of competing powers, strategy, not isolation, is the key to true independence.